But I'll caveat if it was Yang versus Trump, I'd probably go Yang.
Okay, wait, what's the relevant difference between Yang and Harris that means you'd vote for Yang over Trump and not Harris?
He's his economic policies are typically better. He's typically not as mired in the whole
Wait,
culture
well,
war aspect
pause real
of
quick.
leftism.
I need you to pause real quick. For the
Yeah,
people who are in the chat, if people join up and they don't actually meet the criteria, I reserve the right to kick them. If you think that's rude, you can leave. I honestly don't care. It's not rude for me to literally have boundaries of the stream and to say that if you don't meet the criteria, I'm going to kick you. I'm going to enforce those rules. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings. All right, go ahead.
yeah. So typically not as mired in the culture war aspect of like leftism versus conservatives or whatever. And he's also more forward thinking in terms of how we're going to be handling the like job losses to AI and everything like that, like where human labor is being innovated out of the market. So I would say like he's typically going to be better, and that's obviously the Democrat Party doesn't like him. So, but Trump versus Harris, yeah, still going Trump.
I didn't really get a clear reason. What was the reason between Harris and Yang?
Oh, I said economic policies. He's
Yeah,
less mired down by culture war aspects of leftism, and he's
can you
more
name any
forward thinking.
specific?
He specifics on what
Like name the specific distinction.
again the like with economic policy. He's I guess those progressive tax returns stuff, and like he's trying to use this to help us as we approach human labor being forced out of the market.
I understand, but
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that.
he's against like a lot of government subsidies, like I mean, and he's doesn't agree with her assessment that like grocery stores are spiking prices beyond what they should be, right? Like there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I
Her
don't have
position was
AI.
just to
I don't have
enforce.
AI in front of me. Like I don't have a computer in front of me to
Yeah,
look it up.
yeah. Her
But
position
yeah,
was simply just to enforce federal laws on price controls that exist, right, in states already in most states in the country. So I don't know what your disagreement you're saying
well,
there.
she was. I mean,
For
on the
social
campaign trail,
services,
she was talking about price
Yang still
gouging.
supports social services. And also, I just want to let you know, with
Yeah,
UBI, you'd have to have some sort of price control.
I understand. And I'm not necessarily agreeing with UBI in general, but I do like that he is forward thinking where we're not seeing that from most of the candidates because we are innovating ourselves out of the job market. So I think we need someone intelligent and forward thinking like Yang.
Okay, and do you think that we get closer to that with Trump over Harris?
Well,
You
Trump is
think
just a
Trump
better
is smarter?
stopgap. I mean, he's more into like the like oil investment and more and like natural gas production. He's more into
Wait,
that
those things are
fracking
fundamentally
everything.
against Yang. Yang is to the left of Donald Trump on practically every single issue. That's why he
I understand,
supported
but
Kamala Harris
that's
over Trump.
we need the excess energy production now in order to get to like nuclear fusion and things like that in order as a sustainable energy source in the future.
That's
But
way down the line.
if we cut that and we just invest in a bunch of green energy that's not very efficient, then it's going to
Yang
hurt our
disagrees with
economy.
you. Yang
Okay.
thinks that we should invest into renewables. He doesn't think that we're right around the corner from
I
fusion.
didn't say we're right around the corner from fusion.
Well, so if your goal is that we need to just be going towards fusion and we shouldn't be
Yeah,
investing in renewables, well, that's not going to be an actual good risk benefit analysis there because there are a lot more risks associated with that than benefits. We don't know for sure that we're going to be able to develop fusion anywhere near anytime soon. So the idea that we'll be able to switch to that right away is ridiculous. Now we can
I didn't
develop
say we're right away.
nuclear and also develop renewables at the same time.
Yeah,
That's what I want
I'm
to do,
not
and
saying I'm
that's what
against
Yang also agrees
renewables.
with.
What I'm saying is use the most efficient and like cost effective form of energy now to keep our economy afloat as best as possible until we get to these advanced technologies like nuclear fusion. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to increase nuclear fission production plants also. I know a lot of like
That's what
Democrats
we
are
do.
against that.
Nope. Name one Democrat against that.
No, I said just in broad, broad terms. Like
Yeah,
typically
name one.
conservatives are
You said there's lots of
typically
them. Name one.
name one a
Hmm.
Democrat. What do you mean? Like are you talking about
Name
an
a
official?
single Democrat that is against that.
Single Democrat official against fission? I'm just basing it off a survey study. I was talking about broad spectrum people who are like left leaning ideologies.
But you can't mention a single person in
There's
Congress that holds that
there's
view.
comparative surveys out there. I mean, you just like you're the one with the AI in front of you. Just look up,
I don't
hey,
have AI in front of me. I'm asking you, so you think that I'm not understanding. I'm really not getting it.
Trump's doing great with energy production, and I think we need to do great with energy production to stimulate, keep our economy rolling as we're approaching these end state energy sources like nuclear fusion.
Okay, how about this?
Yeah.
Do you agree with whatever Ying agrees with more?
Do I agree with him more?
Mhm.
Yes, typically. Yeah.
Okay. So if he agrees with Kamala Harris over Trump, then would you say that that would be preferable to you as well? He voted for Harris over Trump.
Yes, I know. I would disagree with him on that.
Okay.
That vote.
Why so?
Because I support Trump.
Why?
I think that he like his desire to invest in energy production. Great. Yeah. I think that Kamala Harris was. I mean, you don't never know what she was actually believing. Was she pro fracking, anti fracking? Couldn't tell with how
That's
often
so
she flip-flopped.
dishonest. That's so dishonest. She agreed with fracking in the context of the Inflation Reduction Act. There were fracking leases within it. She was willing to compromise on that in order to get things done. And the fact that people say that about Kamala Harris,
I understand that
but
she
you
was
won't.
willing to compromise
Trump
on
said
it.
no new wars. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he did say that.
So is that more true about Kamala Harris or Trump?
He also said no tax on tips, and I got a great old tax return. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, he also said he was going to end the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours. He also said he was going to release all the Epstein files. He also said that he was going to end.
They're being released right
he said he was going to reduce electricity prices by 50% within a year.
Hey, you don't need a gish gallop. You can do one topic at a time.
This isn't gish galloping.
When you put a bunch of just like rapid fire points across, that is gish gallop. It's like the definition of gish gallop.
No, it's not. I was building on a point. Can you define gish galloping?
Yeah, when you're releasing a bunch of low substantiated argument points in rapid fire succession rather than sticking to a point and building out that argument better.
Okay. I didn't just show up a bunch of different arguments that didn't have accuracy or strength. I just gave things that actually demonstrated the point. So you didn't actually demonstrate anything there. You'd have to say that all my points were vacuous or didn't have justification, but they justified my very point.
Okay. So, again, no tax on tips. Great, right?
Can you address my point without moving on?
Which one? Again,
my points were factual.
So many of them.
Name one point that I said that was not factual.
Yeah, I couldn't even follow. You were talking so fast.
So then how can you say I was gish galloping if you don't even know if what I said was true
That's what gish galloping is. It's rapid fire.
No, it's just not rapid fire points. It's rapid fire points without looking at accuracy, okay? And mine were all accurate. All my points were accurate. You can't even mention how it was wrong.
Okay. Let's see, 24-hour ending the Ukraine war. Yeah, that didn't happen. You're correct.
Yeah, he said he was going to release all the Epstein files.
Was anyone going to end the war in 24 hours?
No, and that was a lie.
Okay.
So the point that I'm making is that he goes back and forth on his positions all the time, and you'll never apply that standard to him. But Kamala Harris, because she said she wanted to be against fracking in the 2020 race, and then literally then agreed on a compromise that there were going to be fracking leases within the context of the bill that she passed, and then she ran on, oh yes, I'm willing to compromise. And you're like, oh, she's all over the place. That's over multiple years. This is Trump literally last year or the year before saying, no new wars, no new wars, no new wars. I'm going to end the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours. And then all of these things he went back on within a year and a half. So it's just like, dude, like, you understand the distinction there?
I was saying that I was not aware of her position specifically on fracking because she was changing her position. Yes, she can compromise. You demonstrated that she compromised on fracking, but that doesn't mean that she is pro fracking per se, right?
No, it doesn't. It means she's willing to compromise on it. So it means
okay,
it's not
so
going
she's
to be
willing
banned.
to compromise, but I would rather the president be pro fracking.
Why?
And not just compromise, but push more energy production through fracking.
Why?
Like actively,
can't we do energy production through renewable energies?
into fracking, rather than not from a position of compromise, but a position of we want to do more of it. Why? I want to do more of it because it's more energy production.
Can you name one bill Trump's passed to do that?
Again, it was from a stance of being pro this. It's not a.
Yeah, I understand. Can you name one policy that Trump has passed to do that?
I'm not aware of any specific bill to pass to do that. We're already doing it.
Okay, so Trump has never held to do anything.
You don't need a bill.
Trump has never held to do anything. He can just do whatever he wants.
You don't need a bill to impact the private sector market. The market responds to the position of the person in charge because they know like, hey, if we invest our time and money into this effort towards fracking, we know that we are going to be supported in any way by the current administration. The current administration's going to, like,
Yeah.
if we
So
go
what
and we
policies
need,
has Trump passed to support fracking?
again, you don't need a policy. You just need to be a position. The market will respond to your position.
Okay.
It's
So what did
like
Kamala
how
Harris
gas
do to
prices,
restrict
how
fracking?
gas production didn't
What did
decrease
Kamala Harris
overnight,
do
but
to
gas
restrict
prices went
fracking?
up. What?
What did Kamala Harris do to restrict fracking?
She didn't do anything specifically. I said it's a position.
So she did nothing to restrict it, and you can't mention anything Trump did to increase it. Yet you're going to say this is something that you voted on? It
Okay,
has no relevance to you.
are you saying
Nothing
that
was impacted.
are you saying that the position, how pro someone is for something, or how against they are, you're saying that position just in and of itself has no impact on the market? Is that what you're claiming? You're thinking that's how
Absolutely.
markets work?
Absolutely.
That's not how markets
If
work,
there
man.
is if there's no policy
You
that
don't need
they're
a
meaningfully
policy
willing to
for all these
pass,
things.
can you please listen? If there's no policy that they're meaningfully willing to pass, then it won't have any impact. Literally none.
That's
Do you not know how the
that's
market
not how
works?
markets work at all.
Yeah, you tell me how markets work.
Markets
If they're
will
not passing a policy or any regulation, then tell me how the market will respond.
Yeah, markets will respond to a president who is his position, his demeanor, like his is anti-regulation, is pro,
That's if
low
they're
corporate
passing policies to remove
pro is
regulations,
pro
right,
low
or to do
low
certain
corporate
things, right?
taxes. I think he did lower the corporate taxes in his first term. Like
Yeah,
pro
and that
low
was
corporate
bad.
taxes.
Not better. That didn't lead to better conditions for producing fracking or anything. Like, what are you saying?
You realize
That's not
corporations
hyper
are the ones
specific to that
conducting
industry.
this.
So how would that affect?
Corporations are the ones doing the fracking, right? You know that?
Oh, okay, I understand.
Okay,
But
so if you
you're not.
decrease
What
their
you're
tax
so
burden,
then
what's that going to do?
you understand that higher marginal tax rates on these companies incentivize them to reinvest. Lower top
Higher.
marginal tax rates disincentivize them from reinvesting and rather incentivize them to pull that money out.
I mean, I don't think that's the case, but
It is the case. You just don't understand how businesses operate. You don't understand how top marginal tax rates operate. Okay? That's the reason why you don't understand this. Because from a business employer perspective, you are going to lose more money to the government if you're going to get taxed on it to a greater extent if you have a top marginal tax rate. And if you are going to reinvest that into your company, you get to do a tax write-off. Meaning you don't pay that in taxes. It's not added onto your income. So you save whatever your top marginal tax rate is. So it provides a greater incentive for a business owner's perspective to then reinvest money into their firm or to their employees' wages if there are higher top marginal tax rates.
but they're going to reinvest it anyway.
No.
They're going to expand their business.
Different levels of reinvestments. You would expect
if they have
more
more liquidity, they're
reinvestment
going
if
to
there's
expand their
higher
business
top
anyway.
marginal tax rates.
What?
If there are higher top marginal tax rates, you would expect more reinvestment.
I would expect more reinvestment if they have more capital to reinvest with.
Yes, which would be the case
through lower corporate tax rates.
Dude, do you know if they have a deduction that they're not going to pay taxes on that, right?
I understand, but they can also get that deduction through reinvestment, even with lower corporate tax rates. And if they have more liquid viable assets, they can invest that too.
I'm confused. Your point is. Try again.
If they have more money through not paying taxes, they have more money to reinvest too. They can do it either way.
So, but there's not as much of an incentive because the money they already took out
Well,
of the business.
the incentive is to make more money.
Sir, they already took the money out of the business. Why would they put the
haven't
money
taken it out
back
of the
in
business.
after taking it out?
The fracking corporations are
wouldn't they just
growing
rather
right now.
keep
They're
it
still
in their
growing.
business and then reinvest it from keeping it within their business?
They're expanding their business right now. It's been expanding ever since his first term.
You're not listening to me. Okay, so you have money in your business, and then you can pay yourself a
Yes.
salary, or you can pay other people salary. Okay, so
Yes.
if you already have done that, why would you take the money and then put that back into the business? That would just mean that you paid taxes for no reason.
You expand and make more businesses. Why would you?
If you want to expand,
if
you'll
you
use the
create
money
more
already
businesses,
in the
that
business
creates
instead
more
of taking it out.
You create more businesses. that creates more revenue streams.
Listen. If you are going to get taxed at a higher rate, you'll keep the money within the business and you'll spend it on the business rather than taking it out in the first place because you'll get taxed on it at a higher rate if you take it out.
Yes, and if you have more money to take out, then you're going to have more money to invest in more businesses, which is what they do. They invest in more business, which grows our economy. More businesses.
Okay, so
right?
Why has business investment declined since Trump got in office then?
Business investment has declined since 2016.
Well, since Trump got in office is what I'm saying. Because he imposed tariffs, he made conditions worse within that respect.
Yeah, the tariffs was
that's tax policy he engaged in to then lead to worse off
the
conditions.
tariff wasn't great. That was not so great for business. Yeah. And I think he's responding to the pushback from that, and a lot of tariffs have already been
And I
gotten
just
rid
want to
of.
let you know the tax cuts for corporate taxes are very, very small in its economic benefits. The growth for economic growth is like 0.04%, so nowhere near enough to pay for the bill in of itself. It's around $8 to $16 billion of economic growth, right, per year under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So not very much growth there. And will grow way more as a society if we decided to put our money into the working class in terms of tax cuts for them and or into policies that provide services for people.
Yeah, we did get a tax cut, no tax on tips,
You know,
and we've
that's a
also
very
are
small portion of the
and
overall bill.
income taxes
It's not
also
no
were
tax
lowered.
on tips, it's a deduction for tips. And it's
Yeah,
only applicable through 2027, and then it goes away. And then also, if you're considering that, you're not taking into consideration the fact that it was bipartisan, agreed with by Democrats, and it's the smallest possible portion of the bill. Okay, so Kamala Harris wanted to maintain all the tax cuts applicable to income earners under $400,000 a year, and only wanted to increase taxes on income over $400,000 a year. So instead of most of the tax cuts going to the income over 400K, most of it would go to the lower income individuals who actually need
yeah,
it.
we all got a lower taxes this year. You're saying it would have got even lower under Kamala? I mean, maybe if she kept her word. Who
Yes,
knows? I mean,
because of the child
possibly.
tax credit, because of the housing tax credit, the $50,000 deduction for small businesses in the first year of them starting
I
out.
mean, yeah, supposedly if she got all that pushed through, but doubtful.
Well, no, I think that she would have been able to get that passed. Those are bipartisan
I
policies.
don't think she would have.
Those are literally bipartisan, so she definitely would have.
I mean, maybe, but that's an unknowable situation because it would have required her to keep her word on campaign promises, which who knows? Again, with a flip flop, and could have been could have done anything
Who do
that
you
on
think's
that
more
one.
likely to flip flop, Harris or Trump?
Probably Harris, yeah,
Harris?
yeah.
You really think Harris is more likely to flip flop? What evidence do you have for that?
Again, well, she already did it.
One time?
There
Changing a
were like
position one time is not flip flopping over and over
there
again.
were a bunch of different positions.
So give me them. Name specifics, because I'll
Again,
name
I'd
you
have to
for
go.
each one you name of Harris. I'll name you three of Trump.
Okay, if that's the case, it's unnecessary to go down that road. Either way,
No,
I
no,
would
no. Go
rather
for it.
have.
Try to name as many as you can.
Listen, I don't got the computer in front of me like you do.
I don't
I'm
have
not.
anything in front of me. I'm just talking to you.
But again, if you got three for everyone, then it doesn't matter. But
So name them. I'm waiting.
oh,
Name any of the ones you can reference about Kamala Harris. I'm waiting.
again, I told you already. I have to go look it up. I got it.
So you don't know any off the top of your head.
No, I don't. I don't like look at this information every single day of my life like you.
But you don't know a single one.
I'm just saying that I don't have it in front of me. Yeah, I don't.
So you say that she flip flops all the time, but you can't mention a single time.
I was.
He's now looking it up. Alrighty, give him a second to look it up. We're gonna give him time to see if he can figure out what's going on there. Elizabeth, by the way, thank you for the $20. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. For this caller just wants to frack our planet to death for energy when there are other means of energy production. Why? Side effects of deforestation, toxic chemicals disrupting the equilibrium of the planet to power our cars. It's and like generally, like I think that the renewable energy is such a preferable alternative, and for some reason they don't want to do those types of investments. Douglas, thank you for the $25. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much for please take every opportunity to tell MAGA you've been lied to whenever they believe a Trump lie. I totally agree. I totally agree. It's constant, right? They'll overlook the lies of Trump, but then will literally constantly apply this insane level of double standard to liberals that they do not apply to people like Trump.
What are you talking about?
And then also Harley, thank you for the $10. Thank you very much for what do you think about Trump trading stocks? Biden and Obama didn't. I think it's actually horrible for this country. I think that it should be illegal for the president of the United States to trade stocks while in the position of president, right? And I actually think that should be true about any of our elected members of government. It should be illegal for them to literally utilize their position of power in order to make money off of that position of power. If you want to make a book after you're out of office, do you. No one has an issue with that. But you are not to use the position of the presidency in order to engage in trades to make money. It needs to be either in a index fund, right, or not invested. That's it. That is the only thing I'm
is he
okay with
making money
is an index
off this
fund
stuff?
or not invested at all.
Is he making money off this stuff?
Yes, he is. He's done a bunch of stock trades. He's dropped meme coins. He's rug pulled them. He's made $3 billion from the presidency. He went from $2.3 billion in 2024 to $6.5 billion in net worth now in 2026.
Yeah,
He's
but
manipulating
I'm saying
markets to make him and his rich buds
as
money.
the president,
They're betting on
did
things
he
that they're
engage in
doing while
trading?
in office.
Wait, as the president, did he engage in trading?
Yes.
Like him personally?
Yes. For
I
example,
don't.
in January, he bought Nvidia stock, and then they did a
Him,
deal to allow for Nvidia to sell in China.
he personally bought Nvidia stock.
Yeah. Yes.
Are you talking about him or the Trump organization? Like what?
Him under his owning.
Really? I didn't see that.
Yes.
And you're saying it's illegal for presidents to engage in trading?
I'm saying it should be. Right now, they have to say what they do in terms of trades,
Okay.
and that's why we have this information.
So you just think he shouldn't be allowed to trade Nvidia stocks? Okay.
Yeah,
And
he should. He definitely not. That should be illegal for him to do as president. Absolutely.
Do you agree?
maybe I don't know.
I think that you should agree that all elected government officials shouldn't be able to trade individual stocks because they can manipulate individual stocks with their words, with their policies, with their orders, with their campaigns, and they could then make money off of that.
Sure. But I'd also rather have Trump as president because in the case that we need a new Supreme Court judge, I'd rather have a judge that interprets the Constitution correctly than one that doesn't.
That's like hyper specific to saying only conservatives interpret it correctly. Is that what it is?
No, they don't have to necessarily be conservative. They just have to have an originalist kind of position where they interpret it correctly.
A conservative
where they interpret it based off of the meaning when it was written, not by injecting new meaning into it.
Okay.
And it seems like Democrats like the judges that interpret it in the new way, new creative ways.
We'll see. Like the Constitution was written to be a living, breathing document. I agree that we should take.
Well, changeable. It's a changeable document.
I think that
not reinterpretable.
I think that we should take some inspiration from the originalist perspective, i.e., what did they intend for the original interpretation of the document.
Yes.
However, we have to be able to then apply that interpretation to today. Basically saying, if we were to look through their scope in today's world, how would they apply it, right? And when we just stick to this like cut and dry originalist interpretation, okay, it's only going to protect what they meant it to protect. Well, then all of a sudden, right, the government can encroach on speech on social media because they didn't even assume that social media would ever exist when they drafted the First Amendment, or the Second Amendment only protects muskets because there would be no interpretation for if the founders thought that AR-15s that can automatically shoot like 30 rounds every 3 seconds should be protected by the Constitution.
Yeah, and also like you can't have any privacy controls for your phones or cellular devices.
The judge to decide like, oh, you know what? They didn't have AR-15s, therefore I'm going to interpret it as a judge to be like to ban AR-15s. No, if you want to change like that, then it needs to be an amendment to the Constitution.
Wait,
That's
no,
the
you're not understanding.
portion of it.
But he's saying the originalist interpretation would then include that there are no protections for things like that, because if there is not an understanding that they had at that time that existed, then they couldn't have possibly been meaning to write the document to be in reference to. So you have to understand that then it just means that there is no basis.
They did have semi-automatic weapons at the time.
What's that?
There were semi-automatics at the time of drafting the Constitution. They were aware of semi-automatic weapons.
But they were not aware of AR-15s, fully automatic
Okay,
weapons. They're not aware of any of those things.
It's still a semi-automatic weapon. Just because it's AR-15.
Wait, semi-automatic. You're saying muskets because they're semi-automatic. You understand the difference between semi-automatic, right?
No, they had repeating, like on trigger pull, per trigger pull. They with magazines that fed into the gun. They had that technology existed at the time of the Constitution.
Another issue that I have with like, I'm sorry, I'll let you respond to that, Parker. But there's just another really big issue that I have with this guy's perspective.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I guess I'll share that now, Kai. So, are you familiar with Plessy v. Ferguson?
Plessy v. Ferguson.
Yeah, are you familiar?
Not particularly.
Okay, so that was like a landmark SCOTUS decision in 1896, and it was on the nature of the 14th Amendment, particularly the Equal Protections Clause, and it essentially ruled that Black people are, separate but equal, right? So, although we have this clause in our Constitution that says all people deserve equal protections, black people are equal, but they're separate, meaning that we could like legally segregate them and push them out of society, right? And the thing is this probably was the originalist interpretation of the 14th Amendment. All right. And the reason why I say that is because Plessy v. Ferguson came only 30 years after that 14th Amendment was, ratified into the Constitution. The framers of it were still alive. And, they kind of shared similar thoughts of, well, separate but equal. And it took a non-originalist interpretation of the 14th Amendment, equal in all senses, no separation, through the Brown v. Board decision in 1954 to end segregation. So the reason why I bring this up is it seems to be the case that sometimes the originalist, quote unquote, interpretation of some of our amendments, looking at the intention of the framers and early case law on the subject matter, is probably not a good way to go about legislating this country.
So it's still a fine way. You just have to ratify the amendment.
So you're saying that the Brown v. Board education SCOTUS decision shouldn't have been made. Segregation shouldn't have been ended because of that decision.
Well, we probably should have done it through the mechanisms that are there for ratifying the Constitution. It's the same thing with like Abraham Lincoln, right? He forced that to happen. It's like it probably should have. We probably as a people should have come together and been like, oh yeah, slavery needs to be ended, but it ended up being a war, right? So
well, I mean, if we were to assume your view, like segregation would have ended like significantly later than it did, because segregation didn't end with like unilateral support. It ended with like a slim majority support, right? So if we had to wait for like enough support for like 75% of states to ratify, well, then we would have seen segregation for like at minimum like another like 15, 25 years.
I understand, but that's not necessarily a good excuse to have the Supreme Court justices overstep their power and their authority in order to get this stuff done. The same thing with like the Roe v. Wade, right? That's why that whole thing got overturned.
The thing is I absolutely do think that it's a good excuse to give more power to SCOTUS, because it just simply prevents more harm, right?
Well,
can you let me finish? It prevented, right, like another like 25 years minimum, right, of racial segregation for SCOTUS to have the ability to, quote unquote, reinterpret the nature of the third section of the 14th Amendment. And ultimately, my main like guiding principle here is going to be like harm reduction. So like clearly, if this view reduces harm, it's going to be the view in which I prefer, right? Like I don't want to believe in your view, which is that segregation shouldn't have been ended for another like 20, 25 years at minimum.
Well, no. So I would agree that segregation was the greater harm. The problem is that when you have issues that people do not agree on which side is the greater harm, for example, abortion, right? Roe v. Wade just getting overturned and everything, where a lot of people think that the greater harm is the killing a million babies every year through, elective abortions. And other people would be like, no, it's greater harm to not let women abort, right? So I'm saying I don't think it's a justifiable position to increase the Supreme Court's power by them just reinterpreting the Constitution just to get things the way they want them to be. If the majority of people in the country are pro-abortion, then okay, we get together and ratify the Constitution the right way, or whatever. I don't think it's just
the thing is it's not just like a majority approval that is what gets a new amendment passed for the Constitution. It is like a super majority approval. Also,
I understand.
We're vesting like too much power into SCOTUS by giving them the ability to reinterpret text on paper. I just think that that's a necessary precaution to give the court in scenarios to prevent tyranny of the majority, right? Or tyranny of the lack of a super majority.
One thing I was thinking as well is that is judicial review even something that would be held by originalists? Because that wasn't established until Marbury v. Madison, which was after the Constitution was written, way after, in a Supreme Court case. So the originalist writing of the Constitution, does that even establish judicial review?
Yeah, like this guy's argument is probably that like SCOTUS has been corrupt since Marbury v. Madison, and they were like way out of lines and out of bounds to give them the reinterpretive ability through that landmark decision. I'd assume that's your view, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, I think that's a crazy view. You think there should be no judicial review on behalf of the Supreme Court. So essentially, the Supreme Court has no power.
Well, I'm just saying that I don't think they should have the power to reinterpret the Constitution based off of their new ideas. I think they need to hold it to originalist positions, and if we want to ratify the Constitution, we need to do that through the mechanisms of ratifying the Constitution.
Okay, well, we can talk about your crazy view in a second. I just want to establish there were no semi-automatic firearms in 1776.
There were repeating
There-
rifles in 1776.
Yeah, there were repeaters, not semi-automatic.
That's what a semi-automatic is. Is every
No, it's
trigger
not.
pull results in a shot.
Wait, but it's a manual reloading after every shot, not an automatic reload after every shot.
Are you sure?
That's the distinction.
I think they had spring loaded. I'd have to go back and check.
Nope,
but
there were no semi-automatic firearms in 1776.
And by the way, the point that I'd like to make here is I don't think that the founders themselves practiced this originalist sense of the interpretation of the Constitution, or else like the Constitution wouldn't be so vague and broad. Like the Second Amendment is actually like a really good example of this, right? You know, the right to bear arms, not the right to bear a musket. And there must be a reason here why the framers of the Second specifically chose the phrase arms compared to the word musket, right? Maybe that's because they knew that eventually arms would evolve beyond muskets. And when they say that they wanted the Constitution to be this living, breathing, flexible framework to evolve along society, like not only is that materialized through the ability to amend the Constitution, but also through evolving interpretations of the text that already exists.
Well, no, it's because arms aren't just, you know, muskets. They're swords. They let people own cannons. There were private industries that had ships with armaments, like war, akin to the war powers at the time. It's more than just holding a musket.
We understand, but there was no semi-automatic weapon. So if you're taking the original interpretation, semi-automatic weapons, under your view, are not protected under the Constitution.
No, it would still be anything
So
that the military
including
has
nuclear
armed.
weapons,
Including nuclear weapons,
including miniguns and RPGs.
Well, again, yeah, we've legislated those back. Yeah, we've specifically created laws against that. Yeah.
Okay, but you think that those are unconstitutional?
No, I'm saying that if the judges were to decide that, oh yeah, we need to not allow people to have automatic weapons, yeah, if that was their interpretation of the Constitution and they made that the law of the land through judicial powers, then yeah, that would be wrong. But we've done it through, I think even Trump.
Semi-automatic weapons are protected under judicial review.
Semi-automatic weapons are, yeah, of course.
Yeah, like semi-automatic, like pistols, like they're protected under judicial review.
If the ban for,
but they're not. But you're not understanding. They're not protected under originalist interpretation because they didn't exist. And if you're saying that it's applicable to any arm that would possibly exist in the future, well, then you're saying it's applicable to miniguns. You're saying it's applicable to RPGs. You're saying it's applicable to every single type of missile, nuke, etc.
Yes.
So you think Elon Musk should be able to go buy a nuke, right?
No, I'm saying the originalist interpretation of arms is that, yes, and then
I don't know. I don't know, man.
We've legislated restrictions to this.
I don't know. I don't know. I think that you're wrong here, and we could see, right, like this lack of originalism, quote unquote, in other parts of the Constitution, right? Like when it talks about how there are forbidden punishments, right, like cruel and unusual punishments. Well, instead of defining exactly what cruel and unusual punishments were at the time, right, like drawing and quartering, so on and so forth, they rather chose to opt for the generalized, abstract, and vague principle of just quote unquote cruel, right? And maybe the reason why they did this is because they understood, right, that what a cruel punishment is would inevitably evolve as society civilized and progressed. And they wanted, the country to continually be able to redefine what a cruel punishment is the more that we enlightened ourselves and progressed. You know what I mean? And this is
I think
really
the standards would still be
antithetical to
based
the
off
notion
of
that
what
you're
was
setting
found to be
forth.
cruel at the time. I don't think the standards would be, the standards would change to something that wasn't reflecting cruel punishments back then.
I think it already has. Right? Like back in the day, it wasn't cruel to own a human as property for life.
Okay. Well, we ratified that. We make an amendment specifically for that.
But what I'm saying here is I think the reason why they use the word cruel in the Constitution is so then the understanding of what cruelty is and the interpretation of the text on paper could evolve as society progressed.
I mean,
Right? Like,
again,
do you really think it's like a good idea to like force like modern judges to like look at like 1791's definition of what cruel actually means? Right? Like, do you think that we should operate off of 1791's definition of cruel punishments?
Yeah, within the framework that we've already
So
ratified.
really?
The
So we should
Constitution.
operate off of a standard of 18th century cruelty to determine what is a cruel punishment for a crime.
Yes, and anything today that would
God.
resemble that, obviously, yeah, that would be. And we have also legislated, and through executive like branches, we have done things like shut down Guantanamo Bay. Like we've engaged in things, and then we've legislated them away, which is how we're supposed to do. We're supposed to create laws. We're not supposed to have the judges.
Do you think the
create
Constitution
laws.
is fundamental to this nation?
It's foundational, of course.
Okay. If your candidate called for the termination of the Constitution, would you stop supporting it?
Would I stop supporting him if he called for the termination of the Constitution?
Yeah.
Are you gonna read me a quote that contextually could be interpreted as him, saying that, when it could also be interpreted?
No, I'm
another
not
way?
going to read you. I'm just asking if this was true. If this was true, like if Donald Trump called for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution, would you stop supporting it?
Yeah. If he wanted to get rid of the Constitution, he wanted to get rid of it.
Yeah, if he explicitly called for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution, like those exact words.
No. If he says that in a tweet or whatever, I don't care. If he pursues it, then I do care.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Can I ask like one more question about the whole originalism thing?
Yeah, go ahead, and then I'll make this point.
Did women of color have like any legal protections in 1791?
Probably not.
Right. So like legally, like you could like rape a woman of color and nothing's going to be done about it. So if that was like legally permissed, yet the Constitution says that cruel and unusual punishments are not legally permissed, right? Would you argue that in accordance with that standard of black women not being cruel or unusual, that legally speaking, it should be legal in accordance with originalism today for black women to be raped for crimes that they commit?
No, I would create laws through other mechanisms to make that illegal.
I know, but I'm saying as it stands, without those laws through other mechanisms, right?
Yeah.
Just looking at the Constitution, prohibiting cruel and unusual punishment. Do you think, as it stands, the Constitution would allow for rape, for black women to be raped for crimes that they commit?
I don't think, in conjunction with like the 14th Amendment and everything, I don't think that would be the position of originalist.
So,
as
I mean, that could
an
be
unratified like a constitution without the amendments, I don't know. Maybe I guess. Yeah.
So
was that happening in 1791? Maybe.
So we'll actually just go off of like a different standard then, because you're arguing that maybe the 14th Amendment would prohibit that. Well, we actually just went over the originalist interpretation of the 14th Amendment, separate but equal. It's illegal to segregate black people from society. So do you think that in accordance with the Constitution as you perceive it under your originalist perspective, that a legal punishment for specifically black people that commit crimes would be to segregate them from society?
Well, we do segregate people from society in jail.
No, we're saying specifically black people, right? Maybe their crime bears no time in jail. So instead the punishment is to send them to a black-only town through segregation. Right? Like, would you argue that that's constitutionally allowed? Would you just argue that segregation is constitutionally allowed?
I mean, I'm not obviously I'm not a judge. I'm not interpreting the Constitution, but I don't know what they would rule on from an original. I would imagine they would from a original position rule against that probably. But I don't personally have like the.
So you're saying that the originalist perspective,
personally for why they would do
exactly.
that.
So that's like the first issue with like originalism as you're reporting it. You don't know if segregation is constitutional or not. Now, your other response to my question about, well, would it be cruel and unusual for a black woman to be raped for a crime that she commits? Well, you said maybe that's not constitutional because of the 14th. So if the 14th Amendment didn't exist, okay, would you argue that the Constitution would allow for black women to be raped for a crime that they commit?
Absent the 14th Amendment? I mean, maybe. I don't know what they were doing back then.
Right.
I'm glad the 14th Amendment is here, yeah.
Do you think that's how the Constitution should have been interpreted at that time?
It wouldn't be cruel or unusual to rape black women and black women only for the crimes that they commit, right? In accordance with his perspective of the Constitution today, segregation should have lasted for another 25 years in accordance with the Constitution today.
You just made an odd claim. I'm not making an odd claim there. I'm saying that
So that's actually not.
I'm saying that I'm very happy that we have
that's not
laws through
that's
other
not a
mechanisms
normative should.
that prevent this.
That's not a normative should, and it's a descriptive should.
Okay. But I'm saying that there are other mechanisms that have prevented this, and I'm glad those other mechanisms were put in place. Like what?
Well, like the other
why-
mechanism. Well, then you're glad that we're not originalists because the mechanism that prevented segregation was a
No,
SCOTUS.
I'm glad that
court
we make
decision
laws
redefining
and we
the
make
nature of the
ratifications to the Constitution.
Okay, then the last point that I'll make before I pass it back off to Parker, right?
States have laws too that are all different from each other states.
All right, so you're basically saying, right, that Brown v. Board was bad. Wait, actually, would you say that Brown v. Board was a bad decision because it reinterpreted the 14th?
I'm not sure. I don't know the specifics of the case.
Wait, I mean, I went over them with you earlier, like Plessy v. Ferguson and like 1896, which was the originalist interpretation of the 14th, according to the framers that were still alive because it was only 30 years later, saying that black people are separate but equal, which is what then led to the constitutional foundation for racial segregation. And then ultimately what dismissed this constitutional foundation for racial segregation wasn't like a new amendment or anything. It was the reinterpretation of the 14th through Brown v. Board. So ultimately, would you say that if everything I just said was true, that Brown v. Board was a bad decision because it was not an originalist decision?
Yeah, it might have been an overstep by the Supreme Court.
Is it bad?
Is it bad for them to overstep? Yes.
I just want to clarify. All things considered,
there's a difference between agreeing with the outcome.
I just want to know, all things considered, was Brown v. Board bad? Or was Brown v. Board not bad? All things considered.
I think the outcome was good, but the mechanism upon which they achieved that outcome was bad.
Okay. So all things considered, we're considering the outcome and we're considering the mechanism used to achieve that outcome. We don't have to go all the way back there. We can just you can go all the way. You can go back to Roe v. Wade, right? No.
Bad?
I want to stick on. I want to stick on Brown v. Board. Okay,
well, why don't you want to do
Roe v. Wade was bad because it wasn't like originalist perspective. So therefore, Brown v. Board was bad because it was not an originalist perspective, right?
Well, that aspect of it was, in both cases, it was bad.
So I'm not asking you that aspect. I'm asking you all things considered. Considering the outcome and the mechanisms used to achieve that outcome, was it bad?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. I rest my case.
The outcome was
good. I rest my case.
That's insane, bro.